everybody. It's Monday, August 8th, and that means it's time for another episode of Nonprofit Conversations. I'm your host, Cecilia Saab. I am the principal and founder of Road Tulips Consulting. Thanks for joining us this week. And to our global audience, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Continuing our 2022 trend of first-time guest, I am really excited to welcome Cynthia Lockrey of Lockrey Communications. And we are going to talk today about why you should not say to people, I'm too busy. Cynthia, welcome to Nonprofit Conversations. Would you like to say hello to the audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, hello to everybody. I'm joining you from Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada. So a bit about me, I've been in public relations for over 25 years and I'm a former journalist before I went to public relations. So I do a lot of helping people be really clear on their stories and know how to communicate with confidence. And I've also, as a mom of an autistic child, I also work a lot with nonprofits in advocacy, helping people be clear on their story and how they can advocate individually and as an organization. But it all comes down to really being clear on the message you're conveying.
And I think that is great advice for whatever audience you are talking with. And when we were doing our episode prep, there were so many lines of conversation we could pursue, but it's only about a 15-minute show. So you'll have to come back next year for those. But this week we're talking about why you shouldn't say I'm too busy. And I connected with you when I read your blog post about this on your website. And would you like to share your website with the audience?
Yes, so it's howtocommunications.com. And honestly, my blog posts are either beefs I have or things that my clients are struggling with or things that I'm like, oh, I just want to talk about this. So that's where this came from.
And that's where I think the best writing comes from, right? We writers write from our experience or watching what other people are doing. People watching is a great way to get ideas too. But I also am a person who does not like the phrase, I'm too busy. For example, I have a sister. I have three sisters, actually. But I have one sister who, many times when I've said, hey, well, what's going on? She'll say, oh, I'm just crazy busy. And then I said, well, what are you doing? What's happening? And she just seems to be in constant motion. Mm-hmm. And which is different to me than actually like focusing on something. So what is your beef with I'm too busy?
So what I hear is, so I'll ask somebody, how are you doing? How's things? And we hear this a lot. You hear it, I hear it. Oh, I'm so busy. Mm-hmm. It puts my back up because I'm a mom with two kids. I work full time. It implies that I'm not busy. And it's a barrier between having a conversation. And I'm also finding it's used as an excuse a lot. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you have time to talk about this project? You know what? I'm too busy. Hey, do you want to get together for coffee? I can't. I'm too busy. And instead of saying, oh, you know what? I'm in the middle of something right now. I'd love to help talk about this project, but can we set a time for next week when my calendar frees up a bit? So instead of saying no, and putting that barrier, it's finding that way of saying, you know what, I'm juggling a lot of balls right now, and I'm sure you are too. Let's find a time where we both have the space that we can really have a good conversation.
And I am so glad you outlined it that way. I like that you dug down and realized this is a barrier people are putting up because maybe they don't want to talk to you, but they just won't tell you that. And so they say, I'm just too busy. But I've also found it's more of an excuse. I also think there's a difference between busy and productive or busy and a full schedule. Like if people say to me, what's your schedule like? I'm sure you're busy. I'll say, well, I'm not busy, but I do have a full schedule. But let me fit this in exactly what you said. I really try to do that. So what do you think are other reasons people might put that barrier up?
Well, I think that sometimes we spend so much time in our head, and a lot of us spend time in our head, and a lot of people aren't self-aware of how that comes across. And it's like, if you are really in your head so much, you need to find that way of kind of clearing out the cobwebs and getting that space. And one of the red flags that I always say when I'm too busy, or you're that person that's always saying how busy you are, is actually damages your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people around you, think of the leaders that are calm, cool, focused under pressure. Those are the people you admire. Those are the people that you go to when you have a problem. That person that's running around scattered, you're just like, I'm going to stay away from them. And it also can cost you financially. I was talking to a real estate agent. This was interesting. And he has a colleague and who's always saying they're so busy. It actually impacted their listings because when people are hearing this in a smaller community, maybe not New York City, but in a smaller community, and saying, oh, that person's so busy, they can't give me the attention I need as a home buyer or home seller. And that person might be thinking, I'm so busy, like I get so much work, bring it to me. But what other people see is scattered, no time management skills, and not able to prioritize. So he said that that person he saw, his listings actually went down.
Well, and I think it comes across also as a lack of focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can prioritize things, but if you don't focus on accomplishing those things, then it doesn't really matter. It's sort of like a dream without a plan is just a wish, I think is how that saying goes. But I think that's an excellent point too about people who are telling, oh, I'm so busy, I'm too busy. And that negative energy comes off of
Yeah,
those people. And, somebody who can stay calm in a crisis or in a tense situation or a time pressure situation are the people that we want to be around. And those are not the people telling you I'm too busy.
no. And it damages your relationships because think of your friends that are always so busy. You stop inviting them over because you know that when you ask the question, do you want to get together for coffee? You're going to get too busy, or you're going to hear about their busyness. And all of a sudden, those are the relationships. Family's a bit different because we're kind of stuck with them, but with our friends, it diminishes that relationship over time. And I've drifted away from people because it's also going back to that prioritize. I know I'm not on their priority list, but so are lots of other people not on their priority list. And an interesting thing a friend said to me, I was telling her I was going to be on this podcast, and it was somebody with ADHD. Mm-hmm. And she said when she tells herself that story, going through Brene Brown, the stories we tell ourselves, when she has a story in her head that she's so busy, it decreases her productivity because she thinks she can't do this, that, because she's so busy. And when she's out of that headspace, she realizes she actually accomplished less because the story she told herself is she couldn't do these things. And when she's in that moment thinking she's so busy, she actually now consciously finds a way to regroup, pause, and say, am I really that busy? And is some of these things on my plate, do I even need to be doing? And refocuses her energy.
I think that is a great technique too, especially the stories we tell ourselves is a great point. I've heard a lot of people praise Brene Brown and her writings and her advice. I have not yet read her work, but I've learned about it from other people. But I think that bringing it back to that energy, because as we talked about before this episode, neither one of us likes that comment. I'm too busy or I'm so busy.
No.
And I think it's really, you do come across scattered, but where's our energy going? And what is the focus of the work? Because I do a lot of different things. I know, Cynthia, you and I have just met. But people have known me for a while. They know I do a lot of different things. So I'm involved in my community association. I have a consulting company. Part of that consulting company is offering education courses. I write my weekly blog post. I do my weekly podcast, and I mentor people or share my experiences with them, on an as needed basis. Sometimes people reach out to me. And I had somebody ask me earlier this year, how many hours a day do you work? And I just said, I don't know, 6 or 10. Is that all? And I said, well, I just really don't think about it because I make choices about where I spend my time. And I think I'd love to hear your comments on that about choosing where to spend your time.
Well, and as you were talking, I was thinking about volunteer opportunities. So
Mhm.
when you're a high production person, like we both are, you tend to get a lot of requests to volunteer. And sometimes we do it out of ego. Ooh, I'm being asked to sit on this board. And sometimes we do it out of obligation or guilt, which is the trap I've fallen into. But one lesson I learned was to really be clear on where I want to focus my energy. As a mom of an autistic child, I focus on advocating for kids with disabilities. It's very clear and in the education system. So really double clicking. So when I'm asked to be on the Arts Council, I'm not an artist. That's a clear no. And so I look at it and say, how does this fit into my priorities and how can I make a difference? And so now when I'm asked, instead of saying I'm too busy to volunteer, which once again, going back, it puts up that barrier, I say, you know what, I really am passionate about advocating for kids with disabilities in the school system.
Mhm.
And so that's where I'm focusing my energy. So it's not a I'm too busy or no to you. It's if you don't say no to what you don't want, you have no capacity to say yes to what you do want. So
Right.
I'm very clear on what I say yes to. And people, the reaction I've had is of respect. Wow, that's really great that you focused your energy on advocating for kids with disabilities. And in that, and even within that, when you get those requests, I look at how much difference I can make. So it's really being clear and not using, I can't, I've got too much on my plate right now, as it's just a brush off to people.
Mm-hmm. And and I have too much on my plate is basically saying I'm too busy, right? And I think that's another phrase I also don't like. I have too much on my plate. Well, then push something off. Is kind of my response. But I think making those choices, you just made such an excellent point about where you focus your time, and a lot of it is about focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say to people, 1 hour of my time is worth 2 hours of somebody else's. And the reason I say that is because I focus. I say I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do this thing, I eliminate distractions and I focus. And so when I'm with someone, when I have those coffees or lunches with friends, which are starting to happen more often now, that we're getting further away from the lockdown, I really focus on that person. I leave my phone in my purse or my bag. It's always off. The sound is always off. Uh, if I see a text come in because it's connected to my Fitbit, I'll look at it and be like, oh, I don't need to deal with that. I focus on who I'm talking to. So if we learn to really focus on what we're doing and be in the moment, I think that helps us and may get us away from saying I'm too busy. And we have a few minutes left in this episode, and you mentioned another thing in our discussion pre-episode that I would love to bring up because I think it relates to people who say I'm too busy. And you were telling me another phrase you don't like that I also don't like is that's my 2 cents worth.
Oh my goodness. So
So
this,
I want you to share
yeah.
that. I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
So I was working with my coach, my business coach, and I was dealing with a very aggressive individual. And as I was dealing with them, I would say, you know what, just so that I didn't get the pushback, I'd say, oh, that's my 2 cents worth, or take it or leave it, or it's my opinion. And of course, she would dismiss it all the time. And so my business coach said, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I don't want to get into it. Because at the time, now I'll lean into those tough conversations, but at the time I avoided them. And I realized I wasn't owning what I was saying. I was giving that person an out right away. And if I wasn't standing behind what I was saying and owning it, why would they respect it? So, the advice I was given that I took to heart and I immediately implemented was, state your truth, just say it and stand there. As a public relations professional, I'm recommending X and just drop it. And what I noticed when I wrote a blog about that and had a lot of conversations, it was mostly women that would do that. And so you're giving your power away. The first time I did this and just said, this is my opinion, it immediately everybody, it was a volunteer role. And because it was a volunteer role, I was less committed to it in the sense of wanting to get into it with somebody than I would be if it was, a client that's hiring me. And immediately everyone's like, that's great, thank you. And I got zero pushback. So the more that I just stated my truths and held my space without giving people an out, the more people thank you and responded instead of taking that out I gave them.
Well, and I think that's an excellent example, because why are we diminishing ourselves? I think saying that your opinion's only worth 2 cents. Do you know 2 cents really isn't even worth 2 cents anymore? It's more like a penny and a quarter. So, why are we diminishing ourselves? And I think saying I'm too busy diminishes us as well, because you have control. You're not too busy. You can carve out 20 minutes to have a coffee with a friend or a phone call to catch up. So I love it. I think, phrases that we hate should probably be a regular part of the series, things we don't, phrases we hate. But I think you mentioned that about women. I think women tend to diminish ourselves, even with other women.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that women need to support each other. And we need to help people have the confidence and encourage that confidence instead of seeing it as a threat. There's the statistic that men will apply for a job that they have 50% of qualifications for, where women won't apply for that same job unless they have 90 to 100% qualifications. And so why is that? And it's that confidence and just working to build each other up like you're doing here, right? And really leaning in and being curious about why we're saying these things and leaning in with our confidence. And when you're confident, I'm not pushing anybody. It's not aggressive. It's just holding the space.
Exactly. And I think too many women have absorbed that wrong lesson, and that is wrong. That is not opinion or theory. It is wrong to diminish your own opinion.
Yes.
And to think you're being pushy for stating what you think. Because you know what? If you're out with friends and maybe you're shopping and your friend tries on a dress that just looks hideous, probably going to find a way to communicate that because you don't want your friend to wear a dress that looks bad on them or whatever it is they're trying on. But women, a lot of times in the professional realm, tend to be more submissive and hold back because they feel that they're going to be looked poorly upon just for being confident. And I've been told I'm intimidating. And I'm just like, really? I think I'm intimidating. And other people who are self-confident and self-aware do not find me intimidating. So there's that interesting kind of dynamic because other self-aware, self-confident people, and I say people because it's not just women, because another issue is imposter syndrome. And that is across the board. That is not gender specific, although women tend to struggle with it a little more often, but men have it too. And it's just feeling, lacking confidence. But if you have an opinion, just say it. It doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you, but they're going to appreciate the fact that you said what you thought. And I kind of think that was the point you were making, Cynthia.
Well, and I think that, you're asking me to be in this role because of my expertise. And I think I'm doing a disservice if I don't provide that. And so, in that particular situation, I was, they were brought me in as a volunteer chair because of my public relations background. So why am I giving them an out when the whole reason why I'm there is because of my experience? And so this is where what I love is once you start using these tools, stop saying you're so busy, stop giving away your power by saying that's just my 2 cents. You will gain confidence. And each time you do it, it's more comfortable. The first few times you might catch yourself, and then it becomes more comfortable to the point where you're confident in really owning that space. And like I said, I'm not pushing the space, but I'm really owning, this is my opinion. And, those conversations with people, oh, I'm too busy, instead of just, let's get out our calendars and see what September's looking like. Or, being really, with people, showing that you care, showing that you do want to do it. But you know what? Right now I'm on a deadline for a project. Can we have this conversation next week? But actually get your calendar out and pick the day, because otherwise, once again, somebody walks away and it's that brush off or that barrier. Commit to it.
And I think that is a great quote to close this week's episode on, Cynthia. And I always hate having to end such a great conversation, but you will definitely be back, and we're going to dig into some more of these things. Like I said, we may make a regular series, Phrases We Hate.
I love it.
I think it would be fun because I'm sure we'll find some more. But what we like to do at the end, all right, I got another shout out to Agnes. I keep saying we because Agnes was a big part of the show for a long time. But at the end of the episode, I like to ask our guest or ask you, Cynthia, what is the one thought you would like the audience to take away? And if they want to follow up with you or read more of your fabulous blogs, how can they get in touch?
You can get in touch with me at howtocommunications.com. I have lots of opinions on there, lots of thoughts on my blog. And my thought that I want to say, I guess, would be, don't give away your power. Own it. Each of us have a brightness in us and a gift. And so being aware of the words that you say and how that comes across. And you don't want to diminish your power by putting up barriers that don't need to be there. I'm so busy. That's my 2 cents. Just really be clear on the words you say and own the power you have.
That is a wonderful thought to close on this week. Thank you, Cynthia. Again, everyone, our guest this week has been Cynthia Lockrey of Lockrey Communications, coming to us from Vancouver Island in Canada. So that's great. One of my favorite places. I've been to Vancouver once and I loved it. I can't wait to get back there someday. But in the meantime, we have to go rogue for now. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back next time with another exciting episode of Nonprofit Conversations. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, you can find us online at roguetulips.com. If you are interested in earning the CAE designation and want to learn more about study groups or courses, you can check that out in our program website, the 501cleague.net. We also offer courses for current CAEs looking for those credits for your so important renewal. So thanks again, everyone. On behalf of myself and Cynthia, we'll be back, and thanks for joining us.